Hey there, my name is Talicia. I'm here at M&M Kayaks in Pinetop, Arizona, and today I'm going to be talking about the differences between a sit-on-top kayak and a sit-inside. So the two different brands I'm demonstrating today are Eddyline and Feel Free, just because that's what we have in our showroom. But of course there are many different models and brands of sit-on-top and sit-inside kayaks. So first I'm just going to go into the advantages and disadvantages of a sit-on-top kayak, and then I will go into the advantages and disadvantages of a sit-inside kayak. So first off, with the sit-on-top kayaks, they are very user-friendly. So anybody can get used to using this kayak. It's a very family-friendly kayak if you're going to have multiple people using it, because anybody can very easily get in and out of it. It's super easy to use. You can bring it in the water up to here, basically maybe a little bit lower, and just sit on top of it. And if you have any kind of knee issues or problems getting into something smaller like the cockpit in this, it's super easy just to get on top of it from a dock, from the water, pretty much anywhere. Another advantage of the sit-on-top kayaks is they are self-bailing, meaning they will drain water naturally. So if you get water in your kayak, it's going to drain out through the scupper holes. So that's a really nice feature. Another feature that's really nice about sit-on-top kayaks is if you fall off or tip over, they are a lot easier to get on because they are super stable. They are very sturdy, stable kayaks. That's another reason they're very user-friendly. You can hold a really good capacity usually on sit-on-top kayaks because they are almost like floating docks. Super stable, super sturdy. So if you do fall off or get out, or even if you choose to get out and swim a little bit, they're a lot easier to get back on, of course, because you're not having to climb inside a cockpit. You just have to push yourself back on the kayak. So they're super easy to get in and out of if you do end up in the water. So going off of that, usually if you're looking for like a fishing kayak, most of the time they will be sit-on-top kayaks because they're more stable. You can, even some fishing kayaks you can stand up in. And cast, you can add a pedal drive unit. You can add a lot of features to a sit-on-top kayak that are a little bit harder to add to a sit-inside kayak. So some of the disadvantages of a sit-on-top kayak, first is you are most likely going to be slower 9 out of 10 times in a sit-on-top kayak than you would a sit-inside kayak. They are made for recreational fun, getting out on the lake. They are not made for touring, doing long day paddles across the lake. More just fun, get out, enjoy yourself. You're most likely going to get wet in a sit-on-top kayak. You might splash water on you from your paddle or from waves and wake. So they are slower usually, not all the time, but usually you are going to be slower in a sit-on-top kayak as opposed to a sit-inside. It's just not built for touring or that kind of purpose, just for recreational fun. And of course, with the sit-on-top kayak, most likely, I'm not saying all the time, but usually they are a lot heavier than a sit-inside kayak, so they can be harder to transport unless, of course, it's like Feel Free brand. They do have a wheel in the keel, which makes it easy because you can just pick it up and drag it in the lake. But most kayaks, sit-on-top kayaks, do not have that feature. And so you might want to get a cart or consider that if you're going to have to be lifting it on top of your car. They can be quite a bit heavier than a sit-inside kayak. So now we're going to get into some of the advantages of a sit-inside kayak. First thing is you are more protected from the elements, as in sun, rain, wind, splashing, wake, waves, all that sort of stuff, especially if you get a skirt, which would wrap around your cockpit and you can adjust it around your waist so that you are not going to get a whole lot of water in your kayak. So you do have a lot more protection, especially if you're going out when it's colder. You are more likely to stay warm in a sit-inside kayak, of course. And with a sit-inside kayak, you are 9.9 out of 10 times, that's not an accurate number, but you are going to be faster than a sit-on-top kayak. They're just built a little bit more for speed, more for long paddling days, depending on what you get. Of course, you want to look into, if you're more looking for a touring kayak, you're definitely going to want to sit inside. They do have usually more dry storage, so like these Eddylines here have at least 2 cubbies for dry storage. This one actually has 3 even. So usually, most of the time, not all the time, but with a sit-inside kayak, you do have dry storage because you have the inside of the kayak that you're sitting in to store your stuff. So getting into a little bit of the disadvantages here with the sit-on-top kayak, they are a little less user-friendly, meaning it is going to take you a few times getting in and out to get comfortable and really good at it. But it's just like riding a bike. Nobody can do it the first day. Of course, you can do it. It's just getting comfortable, getting in and out easily is going to take a few times of practice, but that can even go to, say, for sit on top. Any kayaking, you just have to get experience to feel more comfortable on the water. And of course, sit inside kayaks are still very stable. You just have to get a little bit more comfortable. You're sitting inside the water, so you want to be able to get the feel of it, get used to paddling, and yeah, it just takes a little bit more practice. But it is better if you were trying to get into the sport and do it a lot more often. I think usually people tend to steer towards a sit inside, but not everybody. Of course, some people love to sit on top, and if you have knee issues or any other reason that makes it hard for you to get inside a smaller cockpit, the sit on top is still a better option. Another disadvantage with the sit-inside kayak is you will need a bilge pump to remove water. You are going to get water inside your kayak. That's just natural from your paddle, from splashing. Unless you have a skirt around your waist, then you can most likely prevent majority of water getting in your kayak. But if you don't, you're going to get water inside your kayak, and it does not self-drain as you are sitting inside the water. So that's not possible to have scupper holes because you would just fill your kayak with water. So you will get water in your cockpit and need to remove it, so you do need to have a bilge pump handy to get the water out of your kayak. And you do want that accessible. If you're in the middle of a lake and you get some kind of wave that hits you, you do need to be able to remove it because you're not always going to be able to paddle back to shore super fast to get the water out. And of course, that's another thing with getting in and out of it. You can't really get out of your kayak in the middle of a lake. Most likely, unless you're super talented, you're going to have to paddle back to shore to get out, so it's not as easy to just get in and out. And of course, that goes into flipping over. If you do flip over in your sit-inside kayak, it is a little bit more difficult to get back in and paddle again. It does take practice. You are going to have to learn some strategies to get better at getting inside your kayak, removing the water. You might have to take it to shore to get the water out if you got too much in, swim it to shore. So, of course, you can. Some people love to just like sit in their kayak and flip over a bunch of times, roll over in the water, but not me. So you do have to just think about that in the back of your mind, as it is possible for you to flip over in your kayak in the middle of a lake or ocean or any kind of water, really. So of course, both sit on top and sit inside kayaks have advantages and disadvantages depending on what you're looking for. Of course, I do recommend if you are looking to get a kayak, there are so many more things to consider. We're making a video about that should be out. If it's not out already, it should be out in the next week. Kind of going over more things to consider when buying a kayak and getting into these sports. So it doesn't just fall into sit on top and sit inside. It gets into touring, recreational, all different kinds of things, fishing kayaks, and of course, way more than that. So I am making a video on that this week. So look out for that if you are interested in getting into kayaking, or maybe you're interested in changing your kayak, maybe getting a different style. So check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon. If you have any questions, make sure you comment them down below or send us a message. Check out our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, subscribe to our channel. See you next time.